We're gathered in this room 6 days before International Human Rights Day, when people around the world will celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a document that is both literally and figuratively the cornerstone of the United Nations. When the original cornerstone of the physical United Nations building was laid by the very first Secretary General, the cornerstone contained a copy of the UDHR. While we're celebrating fundamental freedoms and universal rights, we must take time to reflect upon the human rights situation in the DPRK, one of the most protracted human rights crises in the world. As you've heard, 2024 will mark the 10th anniversary since the release of the groundbreaking report by the UN Commission of Inquiry on the human rights situation in the DPRK. It also marks 20 years since the creation of the mandate of the UN Special Rapporteur on North Korean human rights, and 20 years since the very position that I am currently holding was created when the US passed its North Korea Human Rights Act. The freedoms that we in the US and our close allies in the ROK hold so dear still seem like a distant goal for the people of North Korea. The COVID-19 pandemic allowed the DPRK to tighten controls in what was already one of the most repressive environments in the world. 3 new laws were passed increasing penalties for seemingly benign activities, such as watching K-dramas or using South Korean slang. Restrictions on movement were tightened, closing many avenues used to seek relief from hunger and abuse. And while the government focuses its resources on developing its weapons program, the people continue to suffer from food insecurity and are exploited through mass mobilizations and enforced labor camps. For those of us sitting here today in this room, I hope this conference will be a call to action, to be a voice for the voiceless, to make clear to the people of North Korea that we see their suffering, and to demand that Kim Jong-un and the DPRK government uphold its international obligations and take concrete steps to improve respect for human rights in North Korea. Governments are meant to serve the people, not to exploit them. In my role as Special Envoy on North Korean human rights issues, I will focus on advancing 5 priority lines of effort. First, the United States will continue to work in close partnership with our allies, particularly the Republic of Korea, to continue to shine the spotlight on the egregious human rights violations and abuses committed by the DPRK government. This includes by lifting up the voices of North Korean refugees, escapees, and defectors, and supporting efforts to promote the free flow of information into, out of, and within North Korea. Second, the United States will continue to promote accountability for those responsible for the DPRK's human rights violations and abuses. This effort will require close cooperation among all aspects of the international community, including survivors of North Korea's human rights abuses, international organizations, civil society, and governments. Our third line of effort focuses on pressing the DPRK for concrete change, including through the repeal of the anti-reactionary thought law and urging the DPRK government to implement the recommendations it has accepted through the UN's Universal Periodic Review process. As we head into the DPRK's next review cycle, the international community stands ready to support the DPRK in implementing those recommendations that can positively impact marginalized communities, including persons with disabilities, women, and children. A fourth priority is supporting the North Korean refugee community, particularly by calling on the PRC and all UN member states to respect the principle of non-refoulement. The DPRK's systematic human rights abuses, particularly its harsh punishment of individuals forcibly returned to the DPRK, is well documented in UN reports, including the Commission of Inquiry report, and through thousands of refugee testimonies. Beyond halting the forced repatriation of North Korean asylum seekers, this line of effort also includes strengthening support for North Korean refugees and asylees around the world. They are a testament to what is possible for North Koreans to achieve in a free and open society. It's particularly symbolic that we're gathered here in Hawaii, where the first wave of Korean immigrants arrived in America 120 years ago. Korean Americans in particular can play an important role in helping to share their experiences in integrating into US culture and society and support this new wave of refugees. Our fifth line of effort is increasingly urgent. We're focused on seeking a humanitarian solution to allow for divided family members in the United States to reunite with their loved ones. Having met with many of those individuals in the last few weeks, I can see the longing that they hold in their hearts to reconnect with and to find answers regarding the whereabouts of their loved ones. In addition to those separated during the war, there are also POW, abductee, and detainee families seeking answers and reunification with their loved ones as well. These are sons separated from their mothers, sisters separated from their brothers, and siblings who have never met but only know each other by name. Some of these individuals suffer in private, too afraid of the emotions that come with muttering the names of their loved ones. I'm encouraged as I look out over this huge audience to see so many young people here today, and hope that the next generation will continue to carry these stories in your hearts and to remember the very real human impact that the DPRK's controls have. These family separations continue to occur even today, as North Koreans seeking freedom often must leave in waves, parents going ahead of their children, husbands traveling ahead of their wives, or siblings who are separated by human trafficking networks or forced repatriations. With no legal means to communicate, those who go ahead are left with the uncertainty of the safety of those that they left behind. While those left behind often wonder if they've been abandoned or forgotten. The regime's human rights abuses, including enforced disappearances, arbitrary detention, and transnational repression, continue to keep these families separated. As we work together, I urge us to remember that North Korean human rights are not a zero-sum game. We can and must multitask because DPRK human rights abuses are inextricably linked to international peace and security. Pursuing our human rights goals and our security goals are mutually supportive, as are our human rights and humanitarian goals. At the end of the day, this is about supporting the welfare and the dignity of the North Korean people. As we celebrate 70 years of the US ROK Alliance, I'm proud to be here alongside Ambassador Yi Shin-hwa, looking out into an audience that reflects the closeness and the strength of our ties. And if I may, I'm going to steal a phrase from my Department of Defense colleagues as I close my remarks today. It's important that we work together to tackle the challenge of North Korean human rights. The US, the ROK, civil society, and the whole of the international community. So I will close my remarks by saying, as we work to promote human rights for the North Korean people, 같이 갑시다. 감사합니다.